Good afternoon. Welcome to the work session for the Board of Education of Greeley-Evans School District 6. This meeting will now come to order. Ms. Lemon, will you please call the roll?
Director Zari.
Present.
Director Bentley.
Present.
Director Campos-Pizzi.
Present.
Director Edmonds.
Present.
Director Lemos Garcia.
Present.
Director Mash.
Present.
Director Rogie.
Present.
All board members present.
The first item on our agenda is our calendar review. And we have just a few things before all of the graduations. Frontier House breakfast this Wednesday. And then, yes, hopefully you have all RSVP'd to the graduations that you are able to attend. And then I will highlight on June 8th, a retirement celebration for Mr. Wes Tuttle. And we will all be excited to wish you the best in the next phase of your life. We also did reschedule the retirement celebration for the rest of our staff retiring, which I don't see that.
It's Thursday evening.
Yeah, so 5:14.
It's not here.
What time is that again?
5 o'clock.
At 5 o'clock at the UNC Ballroom.
Correct.
We received it in our email.
I will also share that there's another, so this is a retirement open house for Mr. Tuttle that we will share district-wide. There will be another retirement event and leaving event for Mr. Tuttle, Chief of Communications, Ms. Myers, and in-house legal counsel Nate Fall on June 10th. After work, we're still determining the location, and that will be more for friends and family of those three and our district leadership team, but they can come to either one.
Okay. Good to know. Anyone else have anything to add or any other discussion?
President Mash, may I mention for graduations, I have your regalia here tonight.
Okay.
And so if you'll just take that home, it's hanging outside of the Astor here. And if you have any questions or think anything's missing, please let me know.
And if you haven't worn it before, the sash, sometimes we help each other with that. So
I'll dress you if you need help when you
it's-
get there. We'll get you dressed.
Yeah.
Don't you worry. Don't you worry
It's
about it.
kind of like
if
trying
it's
to
wet.
wrap something with cling wrap at the house.
Folding
yeah,
a
and then
fitted
it's like
bed sheet.
inside out and sideways. So we'll make sure we're all got that going the right direction. All right. And then we will proceed to our board member comments. Let's begin today with Director Lemos Garcia. I'm just pulling a name.
All right,
Yeah.
perfect. So I was able to attend the early college visit on April 28th. So I think there was a good group over there visiting. Had a tour of the school, went into some classrooms. Students were so excited, so proud. It was great to attend that visit. And then the other event that I attended was the Rising Artists Project. That was this past Saturday. I had no idea that program even existed and how we collaborate, how it collaborates with District 6. So it was just such an amazing opportunity to see that and be there as well. So those are the two things that I did this last couple weeks.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Director Azari.
Okay, well, it's been a really busy couple of weeks for me. I've attended a lot of things. So I'll try to make this report as short as possible. I also attended the Early College Academy, and the students did a great job, including Sarah, the student who sits with us at the school board business meeting. I also attended the Greeley Central High School Arts Magnet Gala. They celebrated their 20th anniversary. And a shout out to all the staff and students at the castle for putting on a terrific show. I also attended 2 elementary school events. First was Billy Martinez's Dia de los Niños. That was an exceptional event as well. Should I say an entire day of events at that school. I attended the cultural assembly where the music and the dancing blew me away. To say it was powerful would be an understatement. It was very powerful. I also visited their creation of a tree in their building on which the students hung papers which they had written down their wishes and hopes for the future. In most cases, those wishes were celebratory and expressed thanks for all sorts of things like their moms. Happy Mother's Day. But in some cases, those wishes addressed the students' fears and their hopes for a brighter future for themselves and their families. So it was very touching. I then attended Meeker's Leadership Discovery Night. Again, a big thank you to our community partners who were there, including the Girl Scouts, Smile Doctors, and Nutrition Services for the smoothie bike, and the High Plains Library District. And we had many sponsors that donated prizes for the students. And then on May 4th, I attended the visit to Scott Elementary School. I appreciated the candid discussion there regarding instruction, the culture, and their celebrations, including their growth in K2 literacy, even though they've had quite a bit of staff turnover. And they're thinking through next steps toward making Scott a community school, which is really great. And that same day, I also attended the Student Wellness Policy Committee meeting as the board representative to that group. And once again, I was impressed by the content and timely flow of that meeting. They run a very efficient meeting. The Student Wellness Policy folks are working on the triennial review, which is a requirement of the USDA. And towards that end, they're determining how well our wellness policy compares to a, quote, model wellness policy. Suffice to say, from what I have observed, our district is a model standard, and that has come through careful analysis and ongoing improvements in how we do things in this district regarding student wellness. And then finally, like Dina Lemos Garcia, I attended the Rising Artists Project, which is a collaboration between the Colorado Dance Collective and our GT staff towards providing extended opportunities in dance to students identified as GT. And I was honored to be asked to speak at that event, thanks to our superintendent. In that speech, I spoke about our growing GT program, which has added 65 new talent area identifications. That's super. And how we include annual workshops, field experiences, and mentorships in collaboration with many people and organizations throughout our community to give our students opportunities to grow. And I also thanked our community. There were a lot of people there. And the Colorado Dance Collective. Wendy Sosa is their director. I thank them on behalf of the district for being such great partners, which they are. So that's all I have.
That's all?
That's it. Thank you, President Nash.
I've been busy.
Yeah, for sure. We'll go back to you, Director Rogie.
Well, as some of our other board members did, I attended the ECA on the 28th, and it's always really fun to hear from the students and their perspective on their schools. And I enjoyed their presentations and kind of the reasons they'd chosen Early College Academy and how they felt that put them in position for continuing their adult life. So that was just really enjoyed those students. And then I also attended Scott Elementary, and it was very interesting to hear about, kind of their steps forward and what they're trying to accomplish in their school. And felt like there was a great effort there and a great determination to move forward. And we again got to visit with some of the students and hear what some of those kids as fifth graders were hoping for coming up and where they decided to go and why. And so yeah, that was a wonderful experience.
Director Edmonds.
Thank you, President Mesh. Just a couple things. One, I missed, I forget which school visit it was, because I was on a webinar that was hosted by No Kid Hungry. I was talking specifically about school breakfast programs, research done by Juliana Cohen. And it was just a great informative presentation talking about the importance and benefits of breakfast programs in schools. And evidence shows that kids who eat breakfast at school have improved diet and nutrition, as well as improved attendance and academic performance. So I'm grateful for the voters for allowing free school meals for our kids. We're 2 weeks out from summer break where those meals become inaccessible. And so organizations like the food bank and community groups and church pantries and everyone steps up to make sure our kids are fed. But I'm grateful that when they're in school, they get a wonderful breakfast, especially ones here in District 6 and Danielle Bach and her team, as we got to see a couple weeks ago, just the love and care that they put into that. And just how wonderful our nutrition program is. It's great to hear about Scott wanting to become a community school. I think that that's a wonderful step forward in just understanding how we as a district don't just serve the students, but we serve that community, especially in communities like Scott. And you see that at N.K. Hyman, you see that at Martinez and all the schools. So it's very encouraging to see that plan is moving forward. And then lastly, I went to T-Soy Museum Night on Friday, which was always really fun. The theme this go around, they do 3 museum nights a school year, and this time it was on the future. And so I've talked about this before. They allow the kids to take the idea of future and research whatever they want. So I saw a presentation on rockets, especially with Artemis 2. I think we got a lot of those kids really excited about that. I saw stuff on AI and AI art and, ethical use of AI. Some kids use water filtration. So just thinking in a state of like ours, it's, even though no one's seems to officially said it yet, feels like we're heading towards a drought. And so it's allowing the kids to really think about that future focus, because this is our future. So these kids are really thinking forward. But I think my favorite part of the night is when you walk in, there was a self-portrait gallery that every person in the school did one, including the collaborators and the school administrators. And so they did a self-portrait of how they saw themselves in the future. Some kids did football players, doctors, firefighters, all those things. But I think the general consensus that I noticed in all the pictures was there was just smiles on their face. So we do have kids. Director Azari shared the tree that he saw, and that generally there's hope. And I saw that in the self-portraits, that our kids really do have a hope for the future and seeing themselves, that they see themselves happy. And so, again, just brought comfort to me to know that these kiddos, as much as we get to see the news feed, we get to see the effects of when you don't actually read the news all the time, that you can actually paint a happy self-portrait. But I encourage board members next school year to check out Museum Night if you haven't, because it's really very interesting time and you can learn a lot of different stuff.
Thank you. Director Campos-Spitzy.
So I was fortunate enough to have time off to go to the Early College Academy and the Scott Elementary School visits. ECA, always impressive. They have room to grow, which they call them, we call them the best kept secret in District 6, right? Like a free college prep school where you can learn Russian, German, Spanish. I forget how many languages they said they had access to. But they don't want to be the best kept secret in District 6 and in Greeley and Evans. If you know people out there who have a kiddo, Sarah Venegas did a pitch on, I think Dr. Pilch asked her, who is the right student to come to ECA? And she said, anybody can succeed in ECA, and they're doing amazing. That very next weekend after our ECA visit, I was on the soccer fields because of my kids, and there was these two, so the team my kindergartner was playing against had these really young coaches, and I was like, are those like college? It's usually like a dad that, like my husband, he's a volunteer coach, but it was these 2 young guys. And so afterwards I was like, are you guys in college? Are you in high school? Like, you're coaching kindergartners? And they were both ECA students, and so it made me so happy. Asiel was one of them, who actually played soccer for Greeley Central High School. They're both going to 4-year universities. One of them wants to be an architect. The other one's going into accounting. But just made my day for, them coaching these little guys out there. Scott, yes, amazing school, Scott Stars. Just want to echo Director Edmonds that they're becoming a community school. I think that's such a good fit for that school. So looking forward to what they achieve. Let's see, other highlights. UNC had their graduation ceremonies this last weekend. And so I attended Saturday's commencements. There were 3 student speakers in the commencements that I attended. 2 of them were Greeley-Evans students, and they were so good. They were definitely the 2 best. One of them, Kira Villarreal, did K through 8 at university, but then transferred over to Northridge, and she played girls soccer for the Northridge Grizzlies. And will be going to CU Anschutz. She wants to be a physician and a PhD, and she's gonna shadow me in clinic in a couple of weeks. So I'm excited to have her. And then Jasmine, I didn't get to talk to her after the ceremony, so I don't know which school she went through, but her speech was just phenomenal and made me so proud that they're D6 grads. I got to go to Meeker Leadership Discovery Night because my kids go to Meeker. It was so cool. Probably 2 highlights. They did an egg drop. And so, so they, you would go into this room, they'd give you things like pipe cleaners and paper and tape and bags and balloons, and you had to come up with contraptions that you thought would protect an egg as they threw it off the roof of the school. And ours, I am not an engineer. It broke right away. My kids were so hopeful. And then my second favorite thing at the Discovery Night was SNAG. So it stands for Starting New at Golf. And so it's part of the Michael Ray Lee Foundation. So Michael Ray Lee was a Greeley Central High School graduate who was also an avid golfer, went and got an engineering degree from the Colorado School of Mines, and then passed away at the early age of 28 years old from complications related to COVID-19. And so his family has built this legacy and this foundation to teach kids how to play golf and to make it accessible to all kids of all incomes. So Michael Ray Lee's mom was at Meeker with all the golf clubs, teaching all these little kids on how to play golf on this little field, and it was beautiful. I just thought, what a way to honor her son that way. Let's see, because I did have a UNC board meeting last week. We talked about enrollment for the coming year and what those numbers are looking like. Weld County, which is Greeley-Evans, I mean, we're the main contributor, continue to be the largest enrollment of all the counties in the state into UNC. So I was really proud to see that number continue to grow, and it was credited to our direct admissions process that we're working on. They also mentioned that in 2025, they expanded the eligibility zone to allow students to not have to live in the dorms their freshman year. So right now at UNC, if you don't live in the eligibility zone, you mandatory have to live in the dorms freshman year, but we have expanded it. So all of Greeley-Evans District 6, if you're a student here and want to go to UNC, you can live at home and don't have to live in the dorms. So I thought those were some highlights. Let's see, last Friday night I got to go to Chapelo's Ballet Folklorico. I'm friends with their dance instructor, and so it was beautiful. I think Kim Desmond came and took some pictures. They just did such a phenomenal job. I brought my mother-in-law, who is visiting us from Mexico, and she lives in Mazatlan, which is in the state of Sinaloa. And the way they did the dances, they split them up in grades. So it was like kindergarten to 2nd grade, and then 3rd to 5th, and then 6th through 8th. But they also split it up according to regions of Mexico. And so the kids would come and read in English and Spanish, like the region they were representing and what their costumes were, or their dresses were like, and why. And then they would do the dance. And so Mazatlan got a shout out. They had a whole dance, and it was all carnival. So like Mardi Gras in Mexico is called Carnaval. It's in February, and it is un espectáculo. It's just a spectacle. And it was so well done by the students. My mother-in-law was thrilled. So kudos to Chapelo and their staff. The audience, it was full, and they were way into the performance. I mean, people were clapping and shouting out encouragement to the dancers. Let's see, I guess last thing, I scribbled notes and I can't read them. This last week, there's a semi-professional soccer league that is starting in Greeley, and they had their preseason inaugural match. It was done at UNC at one of the stadiums out there. but one of our Greeley Central seniors was playing, and I didn't even realize it. I just kept looking at this kid, and I was like, he looks so familiar, while I was watching the game. And then at the end, I asked Luis Gutierrez, who's leading this, I was like, is that a Johnny Alcantar? And he's like, yeah. I was like, oh my God, I thought so. So how cool. One of our Wildcats playing semi-professional soccer right here in Greeley. And I think that's it.
Director Bentley.
There's nothing left to say. I only attended the ECA tour with everybody else. It was a great tour. They always do a great job. And very impressive bunch of kids. So other than that, I've just been busy with my personal life and work. So excited for graduation season, though. It's always a lot of fun. And if I learned anything last year that I can share with you guys is to put some sunscreen on your head.
Bring sunglasses.
The spray on.
Yeah, we're hoping Amy brings us some other ones. She had some orange ones for us last year.
Oh, yeah, we got Greeley Central sunglasses before. Well, I enjoyed attending the visit to Scott as well, and the highlight of all of our school visits is when we get to speak with the students, and their fifth graders were just fantastic. I especially thought one little boy repeated each question every time we asked him a question. Well, what I want to do when I am done with school is, and I was like, as adults, we're constantly asking people to do that. So I don't know. They were all very well spoken. They knew exactly what they were going to do, and it was a wide variety. And so very excited for those students. The other unique thing that I got to do, Franklin Middle School is my ambassador school, and they had a disaster day. So they partnered with the Red Cross, UC Health, and the Greeley Fire Department. And first they had their students create a video of like a news report that this big flood was coming. And then they set up their gym was as a shelter if people had to be evacuated, and what would that look like. And the Red Cross gave them supplies and bags. And then they went out and they got to go in the water rescue truck from the fire department and learn about fast water rescue and standing water rescue. And they all got to like toss a rope as how they would help somebody who was floating down the street, in a flood. They had a bounce castle that was an obstacle course. And of course that was super fun for them to just get some wiggles out, but they had these giant stuffed animals that they had to try to rescue. So it was a really cool event, and Dr. Lester would like to recreate it next year and maybe, invite other middle schools as well. And then just because Dr. Lester is amazing, she cooked Greek food for all of the volunteers, and I got to taste her homemade family recipe gyros, and it was pretty fabulous. So I was very impressed with the event, and lucky that I got to eat some yummy food as well. So, all right, we will move on to discuss some policy updates.
The Nathan Fall Hour.
Mr. Fall.
Glad you're feeling better.
Thank you. Is this?
That's right.
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Mash, members of the board, Dr. Pilch. My name is Nate Fall. I'm legal counsel for the school district. We thought it might be helpful to walk you through the policy changes that we're proposing to the board, just to lead to some more discussion. You might have some questions around some of the policies, so hopefully we can use this time to talk through that. I just want to let you know that this isn't a time to talk about positions and to say if you're going to vote yes or no against something. So just to keep that in mind, this is just kind of an info session, but definitely willing and open to your questions and feedback here. So in front of you tonight, there's going to be 4 policies that we're going to be talking about. The first one is the student dress code policy. So at the last meeting, we had a pretty robust conversation around the student dress code. And so after kind of hearing your feedback about what to do, we went back to the drawing board and we provided 2 separate versions. So tonight in front of the board, you'll have 2 different versions of JICA. It would be my advice to make a motion on one or the other. So I moved to pass version 2 of the policy, so that makes sense. So version 1 is the committee's recommendation. So this is all the work that Chief Corliss did over the year with the committee to look at the dress code. It's just that same policy, but then it's been updated now with the Board of Education comments. So there was the grammatical error on the sunglasses or dark glasses. I take ownership of that. It's my job and responsibility to draft policy, and I didn't do my job. And so that has been fixed to say sunglasses or dark glasses worn inside the building during school hours, unless required as part of a class or activity. And there's a little bit of confusion because hats, hairnets, hoods, and other hair coverings had that similar language. So that's been adjusted to be consistent. I wasn't sure if there were other errors throughout the document, so that was kind of one of the main areas that we did adjust. Made some other adjustments with your comments. We moved the exceptions all the way up. So it'll say, this is the expected dress code standard, these are the exceptions, this is when you can wear something else. And then it goes into what students may not wear. We did kind of add some language. There was some confusion around the shoulders, so just straps over the shoulders is the expectation. It doesn't have to be any particular size. And sorry, I should have known some other things. There was another comment about, we had professionalism, kind of a sentence around an expectation that students are preparing themselves for a professional future. And we got some feedback from the board that wasn't language that you would prefer to have in the dress code. So we removed that language and then just kind of made some other red line formatting so it reads a lot better than it did previously. So again, I take ownership for how these policies are presented to you, and certainly I think the last version wasn't a proper version. So do you have any questions on kind of what we've done or any other kind of concerns about this policy?
It does seem to flow, but like as I was reading through it, it seemed like it better flow with this updated version.
Okay, I was going to propose a third and fourth version to you all, and I was talked down to just providing a few. And so I did have another example that kind of flowed the same way, but we had stripped out the graduation adornments and the gang-related behavior and moved them to another policy. That would have just required then you to adopt 3 other policy revisions and then make adjustments over the years if we're going to be making adjustments to those policies. So you'd have to be making adjustments to multiple policies, and it just seemed like it'd be a lot. It made more sense to kind of contain everything in one.
Does the gang-related sit somewhere else too, or this is the only document that gang-related sits in?
So we have a secret societies gang policy.
Yeah.
It's like JFCA or something like that. And so that addresses just secret societies and gangs, and that it's prohibited in the district. And it doesn't speak about dress code specifically.
Okay, that was my curiosity.
So the second version that's going to go in front of you is a simplified version. And essentially, if you look at the red lines and you look at what the policy is now, it essentially is just the preamble. And it just says, we as a board want to have a minimum standard of dress. We don't want clothes that are disruptive. Schools, you may adopt uniforms if you choose to. And that's very specific to what the Safe Schools Act requires boards to do, is adopt a board policy that has a minimum standard of dress and prohibits disruptive clothing and allows for a uniform. So that's what that second version does. And then everything that goes under that preamble would move to a regulation, meaning that then district administration would be responsible for making revisions to the dress code, but there would be no board oversight for those kind of specifics that are currently in the board policy.
So per school?
Well, we would have a district-wide regulation, which would just mirror the current dress code policy. But it would be something that the district administration would have the flexibility to make revisions without bringing it in front of you all. So there would be it would strip all oversight from the board and go to district administration.
So as a reminder, regulation lives within our policy documents, but those are administrative. They're not board approved unless state law has required that regulation go before the Board of Education. So what the second one is proposing is that we shorten that policy, keep all of the specifics about dress code over in regulation, which would allow administration to make changes in a timely manner over time if needed.
Would that be similar to the cell phone policy? So the regulation is what happens on the ground day to day,
Right.
which you guys can change as necessary.
Correct.
But there's an overarching policy.
Correct.
So, but my understanding is that with the first one, the attempt was to get basically all administrators on the same page with what they were, so that the district was district-wide and what the expectations were dress code. And this one doesn't do that as much?
Yeah, that's, I'm sorry, I'm not being very clear here. So
Oh, no, it's not.
no, I'm not. So this would be, we would create a regulation, and you can see language in here. It says, the board directs the superintendent to develop and implement a comprehensive dress code policy through accompanying regulation for all District 6 students or district students in accordance with law. And so the way our board policy manual works is the board has policy that it adopts, and then it also directs the superintendent or whatever department to develop regulations to meet kind of the board's needs. And in this case, the board would be directing the superintendent to develop a dress code policy for all District 6 students. So it would be a consistent wide regulation for students.
Which at this time would be the language that's in the first proposed policy. That would be the language I would recommend we put into the regulation.
Okay.
So that
That was
there
my
would still be the ability to work with building level administrators to really work to get consistency across the district in the implementation of that.
Okay, that was my question, thanks.
Yeah, and ultimately the goal of the revisions to even begin with, if we just go back to September, whenever Chief Corliss started all this work, I mean, it was really for consistency across the district was ultimately the goal. So I think we're still meeting kind of the goal for consistency. But just know that there are, I think, 4 buildings that do have dress codes, like uniforms. And so, and that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine with the policy, with the law as it's currently written, and it would be fine moving forward, either way you go, so. But that's a more restrictive dress code than what the regulation is. So I think as long as it's more restrictive than the dress code, then it's okay. It's if you're trying to kind of create some flexibility outside of the regulation, then it probably wouldn't work.
So from an administrative perspective, Dr. Pilch and Chief Corliss, what's better for you guys?
Well, so and this is why we brought you two. The first one, I think, does what the committee recommended. And so we want to honor their work and their recommendation. And I think that both Chief Corliss and I would recommend the shorter second policy. Where'd he go? He's over there, yes. Right.
He's always by the door.
He and I spoke today, and have spoken over the weeks, and I think we both would be supportive of the shorter policy, allowing, regulation to be where the really the meat of the practice is.
And as you, in the future, make changes, you'll still do it with the same process that you've done? So there'd still be committees and teachers and principals and whatnot?
Yes,
It just wouldn't be us having to talk about shoulder strap length and all that
Well,
stuff?
Correct.
I think if you want me to come to my opinion, I think the benefit the way I look at it would be is if there is something that we see as a minor change that may need to be in the gain category, that we can edit and make that change, and that the whole policy doesn't have to go before the board again, would be an advantage in that scenario. Or if there's a recommendation for changes to be made, the whole policy doesn't have to go before the board again.
Does the graduation dress code policy, because do we have a separate one or we don't? We have
We have a policy for graduations, but we don't, like, the dress code language has just been in our dress code all along. And so that was what, I think it's IKF was what I had kind of moved the dress code language into that policy as kind of another option, so. But this version, that dress code language for graduations would just go into the regulation. So it all still stay in kind of the same place.
And as far as graduation goes, from what I recall, there's some wiggle room in there for each individual school regarding their graduations. So that's not detailed to an extreme.
right. What you see in the policy language around graduations is really what was required by state law just a few years ago that we add. I'll let Nate state the language.
Yeah, it's for cultural or religious significance.
Expression.
Yeah, it's kind of the idea is that some students wanted to decorate their graduation caps with something that was culturally significant. It was kind of the meaning behind the law. So And that's why that language is in here, is to permit that behavior if it comes to it. In a non-disruptive way, of course. Any other comments on this? Okay, the next policy, just letting you know, ECAF is our video surveillance policy. Just state law prohibits retaining surveillance footage for more than 3 years. So this is well within that. Just know that this is not legally required that we're doing this change. It's just more of an administrative and practical burden. Also, just having all that storage over the years can take up a lot of memory and cost money, right? So we're just kind of limiting the amount of time that we have to retain surveillance footage because we have all these cameras now. We get a lot of folks that want to look at them often. Of course, if it's something that's important that we want to retain, I know that Chief Corliss and his team have a really good process to make sure that we're retaining videos if it's happening within that 60 days. So that's what that purpose of that change is.
So do we have a limit now, or we just been saving files since we installed the cameras?
I'm not totally sure the answer to that question. You want to come over here? But I know that Chief Corliss and Mr. Henson, both their departments deal with this.
Yeah. So right now, the storage is just basically based off of the servers and how much time that our servers are able to retain. And the problem is the more camera footage that we get, the length of the amount of video that is retained, it's not consistent. And so we're really working towards some consistency with our camera retention. Now, if there's an incident that occurs, we save that footage, and that footage is saved forever. So it's not like that footage only is there for 60 days and then it's gone.
Right.
But it's just for that running footage. And our cameras only record when they detect movement. And the purpose for that is to save space up on our servers. So what we're trying to get is where there's consistency of those 60 days that we're guaranteeing. And it comes down into a budgetary piece of it. As to we buy new servers, we're buying servers with the amount of storage that can only retain up to 60 days. So right now, some of them go a little bit longer than that 60 days, but we're just trying to bring all of them back to where there's some consistency district-wide.
Do you guys need a data center?
We need a data center.
Moving on. Thanks. You may want to stay here for this one. Wait. For KF, community use of school facilities, this is just our school facility. So we do allow third parties to use our facilities all the time. We are just wanting to limit folks being able to stay at our schools overnight for a number of reasons that you probably all can dream up in your head. And so again, this isn't a legally required revision. It's just something more from an administrative practical standpoint. That's why this is being brought in front of you.
And it had some caveat, like if there were some like crazy natural disaster and people needed a safe place, like, right?
Yeah, we added, and if you look down, thank you, Dr. Campos-Spitzy. So if you look down to you might have missed it. So if you look down to the second page of those red lines on KF, you can see that there was a line, superintendent may make exceptions in this policy due to extenuating circumstances. So,
And it would be an emergency or even a really, significant event for our students. But we would manage that at the superintendent level rather than right now. Anybody can fill out the facility use form to request an overnight stay in our schools. And so, they have to provide proof of insurance and all of those things, but it's really quite cumbersome and it comes with some safety concerns too. So we'd like to stop that practice.
And Dr. Pilch promises not to make exceptions to throw a party with all of your best friends. Maybe. Okay. All right, the last one I'm going to invite Mr. Tuttle up here. So for ICA, this is our instruction time policy and also goes over school year and school calendar. We're making pretty significant red lines to this policy. And so I just wanted to kind of walk you through a few of those. So first of all, we defined what a certificated or licensed teacher is. The Colorado rules and regulations allow boards to define who that is. And then we're also I think what's key here is kind of redefining what the educational process is. We're making some changes around recess time. Again, the rules for what counts towards instructional times is as long as the board specifically,
Thank you.
as long as the board specifically includes recess time in their educational process definition, then you can count that towards your instructional minutes. But then we've also added this language around morning routines. Some folks refer to it as soft start. And so that's also been defined as well. And then we added work study time. I will say I met with our CT leaders today. They mentioned that it's work study might not be the right nomenclature. It's work-based learning might be the appropriate way to refer to work study time. And so we wanted to define that. And the only reason I bring this up is we haven't actually come up with any plans for work study or for credit for work. But I think this opens the door for the opportunity to talk about it for next steps. So I know that Lisa Hudson, who supports our business development, and then Jenny Schilling and Jordan Carlberg, who are our CTU leaders, are really wanting something like this. We don't have any actual plan to do it. We just want to kind of open the door to make that an option. And then we also adjusted some language around remote learning for public health emergencies, because that language was added during COVID, and then other kind of stylistic changes. So, Mr. Tuttle, I don't know if you had anything to add to that or not, but.
No, I can just add just real quickly. So recess is important to think about. We have a House Bill Policy 1069 that requires 30 minutes of physical activity for elementary school students per day. And so recess is one of the things that can count towards that. When we think about SEL and some of our development of self-control and self-management, oftentimes those happen for kids in unstructured time, such as recess. So it's a perfectly appropriate thing to be thinking about an instructional component at the elementary level. Several Front Range districts have added recess just in the last couple of years to this policy. So just know that that's happening in several other districts. And then through negotiations, you heard about the soft start. And as we talk about wanting to include that as instructional time, and when we talk about it as morning meetings, our staff really value that time and see the value of that. So that's the reason we've included that here as well.
And sorry, I know you said the nomenclature of work study might not be correct. When I think work study, I think college when I got paid to study at work.
They're getting paid with with high school credit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
So then-
and they may be getting paid by their employer as well. It's just not, the district is not paying it.
Okay, so that's.
So yeah,
that clarifies.
work-based learning, I think, is a more appropriate.
Yeah.
I think so.
Is that reflected in this?
It's not.
So we would need to make a motion with the expectation that that would be corrected.
Yeah, if the
If
board
board
wants to
agrees.
move forward, that would be probably the best
Okay.
move would be to reflect kind of the more accurate statement there. Sorry, and I didn't mean to cut you off.
Or we could table it
Okay.
tonight and fix it and bring it back in June, whatever you all prefer.
So you touched on this, Mr. Tuttle, but I'm going to make the presumption that this policy is not going to add any unrest to negotiations. It's going to benefit the
And this was
negotiations.
part of what was rolled out to the Teachers Association as part of this. So I'm looking back at Aaron.
It's kind of what I
So
assumed.
this was part of that mutual agreement. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
I am curious, the recess, is that for K through 12? Like, is that like off-campus lunches?
Elementary.
Okay.
You might also see some changes around passing time between lunch, and just know that the
Yeah.
rules are very specific, that if you're going from class to lunch, that can count, but if you're going from lunch to a class, it cannot. So we kind of cleaned that language up a little bit too. So,
From
not-
between two classrooms or,
yeah. Not that it was necessary, but just for clarity purposes, we made those changes.
I just want to say it's funny, the use of the word certificated. I'm like, why isn't it just certified?
I don't know, and it's hard to say.
Yeah, it's like certificated or licensed teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's the same thing as certified, but maybe it's not.
And if we're talking about things like work-based learning, that would be a key inquiry, is are they certificated or not, right? So, any other thoughts or comments for that? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you're still on deck, at bat.
I am, and I did not print this out for you, but I hope you're able to pull up. I sent just a PDF of the outline today. So just giving you a legislative update. So we know that Wednesday is the final adjournment day. They are still doing a ton of work. It always surprises me how much work they managed to get done in a week, and kind of what all that time was spent previous to this, right? So just wanted to cover just a couple of bills we've been talking about, talk a little bit about school finance. I know that I completely neglected to talk about Initiative 195 on here, so I apologize for not adding this to this because it is super important and relevant. So just to talk through some of the proposed legislation, the School Finance Act, there were several amendments that were brought forth and passed this morning. What I can say is an area of concern for us is cost of living factor has kind of come up as impacting our bottom line pretty significantly. And I don't want to botch Ms. Sponsor's words here, but it sounds like around February, we got some numbers to kind of work with in terms of setting the budget. And we got new information just recently, this past week, and the cost of living factor impacted what we're going to receive this upcoming year pretty significantly if it was going to be rolled out the way it is. We know that the cost of living factor really helps those districts that have a high cost of living. And this school district doesn't have as high a cost of living as those districts in the Denver metro area and some of our Summit County and Mountain School District residents. So what they did today is they passed an amendment to essentially hold harmless the cost of living factor and delay it for another year so that we're not going to be kind of saying the significant decrease that we once did. What did I miss?
Oh, she's coming up.
Yeah, she is.
Ooh, she came printed out, prepared. Thank you, Miss Sponsor.
Miss Sponsor likes paper and electronics, both.
I do. I
She likes
sometimes have
both.
to write. So the School Finance Act, we thought was on kind of a smooth path to approval. But last week we kind of hit a bump in the road. And so some information that we learned had been held at CDE since February was kind of suddenly brought into the formula, and we were not aware of the impact that data would have until last week. And so districts like ours that were facing a drop in funding because of that information, we said, time out, we need to have more conversation about this. So several districts kind of got together. Case was a driving force behind this. And so we got together and we said, ultimately, let's not try to fix it because we don't have time to fix the problem right now. This is going to take some time to really study the unintended consequences of the cost of living factor. So let's just go back to the cost of living factor that was in place last year. It's been in place the last 2 years. And let's just go with that number. And so that helped our district not lose, it was over $1 million of an impact to the district. And so even districts that were going to be winners in that scenario, they were like, this isn't right. You can't spring this on districts at the last minute and expect them to figure out how to make this work. So I think everyone was on board with supporting this kind of change. So I was kind of waiting all weekend. They thought the amendment might come on Saturday. It came today, along with 10 other amendments to the School Finance Act. So I've been trying to get my arms around what each of them really means. One is the cost of living factor that we were just talking about. That is what we expected to see, and we're thankful for that. Another amendment has to do with the smoothing factor. And so we've talked about how the declining enrollment causes kind of a fiscal cliff. If you drop in enrollment and then you don't have any kind of buffer in your budget to help have a soft landing, that creates a problem. And so rather than going around and around with the concept of phantom kids and getting paid for students that aren't really there, we've said, okay, let's come up with a smoothing factor. And so there's been kind of a work group the last year that has studied this issue and made a recommendation. And so that recommendation has finally made its way into the bill. So that's what we expected to see. I think it's probably the best we can do in terms of that topic. So hopefully that will put the phantom student conversation to bed. And then the last amendment, I'm still honestly trying to get my arms around, has to do with charter funding and how we pass through the funding to our charter schools. So since I don't really understand yet what that looks like and what that means, I'll just tell you that it's there and I will continue to evaluate this. So, any other questions about school finance?
For the smoothing factor, is it, so I know that we used to average 5 years and then it was 3 years. Is it 3-year average?
So this year, going into next year, will be 3 years. If the new funding formula is phased in at the 45% level, which it's scheduled to do a year from now, then the smoothing factor would come into play. And so it's basically taking your current year enrollment, half of that, 30% of the prior year, and 20% of the 2 years before that. So trying to smooth that out over time.
The cost of living thing is surprising. I felt like that's what the whole point was, to have the dollars follow the
Exactly.
student, not the cost of
Yep.
living of.
That's exactly it. And what we saw are the small rural districts that have a different cost of living. They were negatively impacted. Districts like ours, we were negatively impacted. So we need to just have a better understanding and conversation about how that cost of living factor should work. And is it doing what we think it should? Are there other ways to offset that? To be determined, but we at least got the fix in that we need for this year. Anything else?
Fun with that light reading.
I did you for 135 this one.
Yeah.
I'll stay.
I lean on the expertise of Ms. Sponsler all too often, as we all do. And so the next bill we just wanted to briefly talk about was that 135. That is the initiative to withhold some TABOR refunds and then create that kind of positive factor that'll flow to the districts. They have adjusted the language pretty significantly. They made some amendments to the bill to make it more clear about what it's funding and what it's being funded for. I am a little bit confused about how the interest is to compound every year. It's a 2% compounding, right? And so what I can say is this is still the underlying issue with all this is if there's no refund to be given, then there's no money to be had, right? So this is just assuming that there is a refund every year, that we would be getting that additional funding. But this is a much better version, this amended version, than the previous version that we saw. I don't know if you had anything else to add to that.
I think this helps get us to a place where we can support this going forward. I think the reality is any additional money into K-12 is helpful. And so even though this is not really clear about exactly how much funding there would be from year to year, it's something. So that's helpful.
Which, and then if we're talking about Initiative 195, I think that there's actually more potential for benefit to the school district than what 135 has to offer. And so just know, and I apologize for not including that as a topic of conversation for today, but I think we would stand to benefit more from that ballot measure passing than this one.
But if they both
Great
pass,
to have
that'd
both
be
of them.
great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And then just so you know, I added a couple bills that have been postponed indefinitely or are no longer on the table, right? So 26-176, that's at Civil Rights Enforcement. That's at OCR Light, the kind of state level Office for Civil Rights. That bill's been postponed indefinitely. Really anything that had a fiscal note attached to it this year didn't go through. There wasn't a lot of legislation that's going to really create any impacts for us in terms of policy development or kind of trainings or things of that nature, which I find to be beneficial, because year after year, we have to kind of make a lot of adjustments, and this year we just didn't, because so much of the focus has been on finance. Senate Bill 26-193, At-Risk Public School Program and Public School Accountability. I bring this bill up, Case had originally opposed it, they have now moved into a monitoring position. They made some adjustments to make this a little bit more palatable. What I can say is this bill would have created more work for our finance team to demonstrate where money is going and that it's being given for our at-risk students. Some of the adjustments that were made is if you already have a priority improvement plan, for example, then you don't have to do any additional reporting. So it took some of that reporting off the table, but it's still extra work that is unnecessary. We might need to adopt a policy or make revisions to a policy. That would be the only bill that I saw. Senate Bill 26-145, charter school involvement in local ballot questions. This bill did pass both chambers. Again, I don't see any need for immediate changes, but if we do move for another mill levy or bond, then we would need to involve charters a little bit more in that decision. I know we already have in the past, so I don't think it's going to change our practices much in this district. Senate Bill 26-170, Task Force to Expand Effective Public Schools. This is a new bill, and it would just create a task force to study equitable education resources. It's moving through both chambers, so everybody seems to like this bill, and we like task forces a lot to study things. Senate Bill 26-189, Automated Decision-Making Technology. I also bring this bill forward to you as an FYI. In 2024, there was legislation passed around artificial intelligence that created some pretty strong requirements for developers of artificial intelligence as well as consumers of artificial intelligence. So this bill is kind of a response to that bill. Really, they're going to be moving disclosure and implementation to January 1st of 2027 for companies that have AI. For the consumer, like a school district, there might be some issues where we have to make sure that any software that we're working with that has artificial intelligence embedded in it doesn't contain things that have bias. So making sure that there's no algorithmic bias with the artificial intelligence. And so we have developed a pretty robust software review committee that looks at every software that comes in front of us that we might pass this. So this will be another layer that we're going to be adding, is making sure that it's not using AI that can be biased. So I don't know if there is any actual immediate changes for us as a school district, but it's certainly something that we've been monitoring because we knew that there was going to be some language coming forward around AI responsibility. And Colorado's one of the first states in the nation to have kind of legislation like this. Then just two more. House Bill 1078, this is that off-campus concurrent enrollment program. This also passed both chambers. The way I see it is this is just going to expand opportunities. And so right now for post-secondary institutions, four-year institutions, unless they're participating in TREP, students aren't allowed to attend courses off campus at those institutions. This would just allow for more programming and opportunities for students who attend classes not provided directly at school. We would need to address that with UNC or whatever four-year institution that we would be working with. So that'd be more contractual in nature, if anything. And then of course we would have to go through curriculum to make sure that we're doing that appropriately. So the last bill is 1292. This is that scholarship granting organization bill that was postponed indefinitely. So that was the bill that I was really hoping for would put up some guardrails around these SGOs, but it sounded like Governor Polis was going to veto this bill anyways. So maybe that's why they decided to go that direction. That's it. There's probably more to talk about, but I didn't know if there's anything else you had any specific questions about.
Do you know the time frame of that? Is it 195 to get on the ballot to like how many? When do signatures have to be in?
Yeah, so July 13th is the day they're giving us. I think technically they said it was actually August, but July 13th is so they need, there's 35 Senate districts in the state. They need 2% of registered voters in each Senate district to sign the petition in order to get it on the November ballot. And then they need an absolute number of at least 30,000 signatures.
Okay.
So for Senate District 13, it's about 2,600 signatures. But if we can gather more to add to that 30,000 minimal requirement, that would be great.
To be clear, there are two potential ballot measures that could potentially benefit K-12 and the state budget and other programs for children in the state of Colorado. The one is the ballot measure that is proposed as a possibility based on the signature gathering that Dr. Campos-Spitzi just spoke about. The other is 135, which is actual legislation where our legislators would refer that to the ballot, and then there would be a vote on that in November as well. So there'll be more to come. We'll know more by our next board meeting, and we'll bring you more information about both of these for the next board meeting.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank
Fall.
you.
Let us debrief the work session. And we'll start with you, Dr. Campos-Spitzi.
Yes, thank you for giving us a chance during the work session to look at some of those policy updates. I know there's more than we usually have on the agenda, so thank you for giving us that opportunity to ask more questions and to get more clarification. And then as always, the legislative update is always a thrill, and getting the most up-to-date information of the amendments even from today. Thank you for keeping us up to date on all of that as we stay hopeful for the budget.
Director Edmonds.
Yeah, I'd like to say another thank you to Chief Corliss and the committee for all the hard work you guys did for starting in September. I heard that a lot, that you guys have been doing a lot of work just to make sure we get to that place and make sure we've got the right policies that make for the best learning environment for our students and easy for our teachers. So thank you for the time you put for that and keeping our schools safe. Thank you, Mrs. Sponsler, for taking on trying to understand 10 amendments in one day. And I know everyone likes puzzles. Mine usually involve pictures, but I appreciate you just taking the time to help us understand that a little better. And I'm just, I'm holding on to hope.
Thank you. Director Rogie.
Just appreciate the information and just trying to take it all in. So just appreciate everybody's work and time.
Director Lambs-Garcia.
Same. I really appreciate all of the conversation around the policy updates and the legislative updates. I just learn every time we come to a meeting and we get policy and legislative updates. So thank you for spending the time with us.
Director Azari.
Once again, I'm glad that there's a light at the end of the tunnel in regards to the finance formula for this year. I'm looking forward to getting that done and appreciate all the work towards that and the work on our policy statements. Real important.
Director Bentley.
Ditto. Dorn said it great, so not much to add.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the team that keeps us informed. I understand that other districts don't have such a robust team of folks to help their boards understand. So yes, thank you for all the updates, for wading through the information. And we will reconvene at 6 p.m. This meeting is adjourned.